From the heart of Wayne County, this is Wayne Goldsboro Television, Goldsboro, North Carolina.
Thursday. It's the 24th of October. Hello. Good morning. My name is Wayne Alley.
And I'm Kim Best. Good Thursday morning.
This is WGTV Today, Wayne Goldsboro Television. Hope you're doing well today. Kim.
Yes.
Who's on today's program?
Yes.
I know. I'm sorry. Let me take this, okay?
Okay, you can take it.
I had a lot of fun talking with with a couple of guys. Hugh PATE, retired auctioneer, and former Goldsboro Tobacco Market Supervisor GERALD Taylor. The three of us sat down one day recently, a few days ago, and just talked about the Goldsboro Tobacco Market.
And the way it used to be.
Man, it was great, and we're going to be talking about that and reliving some of the old times, and it was fun.
And you know, Goldsboro was known all over the world as being a very high-quality tobacco area.
Yes, indeedy. And we're going to touch on that, touch on some of the, and just kind of relive some of the times and the days, and they will explain the tobacco market a little bit.
And how it changed and evolved.
Yeah, how it evolved, and then how all of a sudden it just kind of went away.
Yep.
And others as well on today's program. I think you're going to enjoy it. All right.
Yes.
Do you
have birthdays? You can go ahead.
Sure, I've got birthdays. I have birthdays coming out my ears, see? Okay. I did have them here. I've got birthdays. Okay, doggone it. I know I've got, oh, here they are, right? A birthday today for Y.A. Tittle. Y.A. Tittle, and if you're a football fan and a football fan, football fan, you know the name Y.A. Tittle.
And if you're not, you don't.
If you're not, you don't. But he's 86 years today, all-pro quarterback, spent 17 years in San Francisco and in New York. You know what a tittle is? A tittle is a little dot over the letter I.
Okay.
That's a tittle. But that doesn't have anything to do with his name or with football. He's 86 today. Corey Robertson is a Duck Dynasty star who's the wife of Duck Commander CEO Willie Robertson. Corey, she's 39 today. Actor Kevin Kline is having a birthday. He's 65.
He's a great actor, by the way.
He's very talented. Another one of my favorites, B.D. Wong.
Tell me who that is.
B.D. Wong is the... That's right. He's one of the stars. Our producer got that one. He's one of the stars of Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Dr. George Huang.
Okay.
Dr. Huang is the psychologist on Law and Order.
All right.
Doug Davidson.
Doug Davidson.
Doug Davidson. Ring a bell? Okay. He is Paul Williams.
Yes, Young and the Restless.
On the Young and the Restless. I started to say the soap and the Restless, but that's not right. Anyway. Casey Wilson, comedic television and film actress known for her 2-year stint on Saturday Night Live and for portraying Penny Hartz on Happy Endings. She is 32 today, and David Nelson would have been 77 today. A lot of people don't know the name. It doesn't ring a bell right off the bat. David Nelson was Ricky Nelson's brother, who he and Ricky starred on the show with their parents, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, which was a play, kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, because there were no adventures on that show. It was just a family thing, and Ozzie always got into trouble. He was the youngest Eagle Scout in America, by the way, at one time, and she was a beautiful singer for a big band in real life now, and then they went on to become TV stars. David Nelson grew up to become a circus acrobat.
Wow.
This is true. He became
really?
He really did. And, of course, he passed away a few years ago. He would have been 77 today. He died in 2011, a couple of years ago. Son of Ozzie and Harriet, played himself on television, David Nelson.
Nice. Well, happy birthday if it's your special day.
There you go. Okay. And yesterday was Mom's birthday, right?
Yesterday was my birthday.
yesterday. Well, happy birthday!
Well, thank you.
Hey, happy birthday!
It was also our producer Barbara Arnson's birthday.
Barbara, happy.
That's right.
Why didn't I mention that?
I don't know. Why didn't you? What's wrong with you? Just kidding.
Well,
just kidding.
I've been sick.
You've been sick. Well, let's talk about this education forum.
Okay.
How about that?
Let's change the subject.
Let's do. Let's see. The Wayne County Chamber of Commerce is holding an education forum on Thursday, November the 7th from 12 until 1:30 at Lane Tree Conference Center.
Oh,
How about that
how
name?
about that?
Yes.
Yes.
Conference Center.
Conference Center, yeah.
$25 per person.
25.
It's a full seated lunch, and we've got some fabulous panel that will be here today. It'll be on that day. It'll be Dr. June Atkinson. It will be one. She is the State Superintendent of Public Instruction.
She sure is.
Dr. Hope Williams,
Right.
President of North Carolina Independent Colleges and Universities.
Right.
Dr. Scott who is
Rawls.
it? I can't
Dr.
see that.
Rawls, R-A-L-L-S, yeah.
President of North Carolina Community College System.
Right.
And Dr. Steve Bullard, or is that Ballard?
Ballard.
Ballard, let's get that right. Chancellor of East Carolina University. Wow, what a panel.
That's quite a lineup.
My goodness. An RSVP is required, though, so you need to call the Chamber of Commerce at?
Chamber of Commerce is at 919-734-2241.
That's exactly right, so don't forget, Thursday, November the 7th, 12 to 1:30, Lane Tree Conference Center. $25 if you'd like to attend.
All right, we're moving right along on this Thursday morning. Thank you for being with us. Let's go to our first interview.
Perfect.
Today we're talking with Jimmie Edmundson, who is the chairman of the executive committee of the Chamber of Commerce Military Affairs Committee. Oh man, how you doing?
Great. How about you?
I'm doing great. Always good to see you, and I appreciate you coming in and talking to us, Jimmie.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Last time you were with us, that was about a year ago or so. We were concerned about the windmills, the energy thing that somebody was trying to put up or build up off the coast of North Carolina. And you and others were heavily involved in that, in going to Washington and getting that straightened out. Tell us what happened.
Well, it took a long time, but the state legislature passed some legislation that will protect the military, all the military in North Carolina, from these wind turbines that are planned in places that would interfere with training.
Right.
So they did a great job, but if you will recall, there was one project that received initial permitting from the state, and that's what alerted us to the problem. So that one really is exempted from the legislation. However, it would have to pass several more hurdles before it could be built. And that standalone farm we don't think would be very beneficial to anyone. So we thought we had all that worked out. There was an agreement that we had with Invenergy and DOD and the state of North Carolina that would take care of that initial wind farm. However, we learned about 45 or 60 days ago that Invenergy was back at DOD trying to renegotiate that agreement. So we're looking into that. We don't know exactly where that's at, but I think the bottom line is Invenergy is the kind of company that's not going to go away, and we just got to keep our eyes on them and make sure we don't let them do something that would damage our military.
This is not a government company. This is a commercial company, is it
That's
not?
correct. That's correct.
Right.
Based out of Chicago.
Based out of Chicago. Is there nowhere else in the entire country they can build their turbines?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the stimulus.
I see.
You know, I think there's a lot of unanswered questions about wind energy, and I'm certainly no expert and know just enough about it to be dangerous. But what I have read and learned through this process, there's still a lot of things that have to be worked out to make wind energy an efficient source of energy. And but this company has received millions and millions and millions of dollars in stimulus money. And truth of the matter is, I think that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the stimulus money,
Yeah.
and
they're trying to put it to use so they can answer to the
exactly
to the people who gave them that money.
exactly. But Dare Range, a company that would come in and threaten an asset like Dare Range, I don't consider them very good citizens.
And the Dare Range is used by not only Seymour Johnson.
It's used by the Navy, the Marines, and actually the Army trains down at the range. So you know, all branches of service use that range, and it's a range that can't be duplicated anywhere. So it's a national treasure as far as defense is concerned.
And I think it's very important that you said it cannot be duplicated.
Cannot be duplicated.
This is a range we desperately need for our training, and we were in danger of losing that range because if the turbines went in, we couldn't use the range.
Well, the F-15 training would probably go away here at Seymour without that low level route.
Which means we would lose the base.
Yeah.
Eventually.
You lose the range for everybody and could conceivably cost us the base.
Yeah. Well, so we're in better shape than we were this time last year. We're not out of the woods yet, according to what you're saying.
I think we're going to have to keep an eye on this company for a long, long time.
All right. And what's the name of this company again?
Invenergy.
Invenergy. Is that with an I?
Yes.
Invenergy. All right. We'll keep an eye out for that.
We
All
will.
Right. Good. Military Affairs Committee. What is that, and what do you do?
Well, you know, the Military Affairs Committee was established a long, long time ago, I think back in the early 60s, to just make sure we maintain a good working relationship between the military and Goldsboro and Wayne County. And we've had some wonderful leaders in the Military Affairs Committee that have done an outstanding job over the years for a long period of time. And I think we have one of the best, if not the best, military affairs committees in the country, in the Air Force. And so we spend a lot of time doing that. We take the money we raise from dues, we put it back at Seymour Johnson to assist in whatever we can help with. And then the other part of our job is to kind of keep an eye on DOD and Congress and BRAC and the potential of another BRAC, and to try and make sure that when and if that comes, that we're prepared for it.
Yeah.
And that means having a lot of conversations with a lot of different people. We need to understand what our weaknesses are, and we're like everybody else, we got weaknesses. We need to understand what they are and do what we can to mitigate those, but also understand what our strengths are and play to those. So that's what we're trying to do now.
How often do we have a BRAC? And for those who are not familiar with BRAC, it's base realignment and
Closure.
Which we have been very successful in being able to avoid the consequences of BRAC in recent years. But now some people are really concerned about this. And in fact, every time BRAC comes up, I must say and admit that I'm a bit irritated by media who tend to take this BRAC story and blow it way out of proportion. I've even heard them say many times that Seymour Johnson is on the list for closure, and of course it has not been. It's been on. It's always on a list. They're all on lists. But now tell me about BRAC.
Well, you know, the 05 BRAC was the last authorized BRAC, and the thought was there would never be another BRAC.
Right.
But that thought process has changed.
Now, is that because of administration? No, and I'm not throwing rocks here, but is that...
Well, I think it's because when you're fighting two wars, you need all the assets that you can muster.
Yeah.
But now that we're not fighting two wars, at least not to the degree that we were, there's a lot of push, and rightfully so, to decrease the amount of money we're spending on defense. So there's going to be a drawdown in defense monies. There'll be a drawdown in the number of airmen, Marines, soldiers, and sailors. There'll be fewer of those. There are going to be fewer weapon systems out there.
But not to mention that now there is such a thing as an F-15 or 16 that are pilotless.
Yeah.
No pilot. They're actually able to fly it remotely. Of course, that's down the road, but they're doing this. They're testing this already successfully, I must say.
They are, very much so. But, you know, right now there's no authorization for another BRAC. But everyone is saying, the people that we talk to, that they've got to do something to figure out how to cut the budget.
Yeah.
And so we were hearing to begin with, you know, like 2015, there'd be another BRAC. Now we're hearing it would probably be more like 2017. We're also hearing there's a group of congressional folks up on the Hill that are looking at alternatives to BRAC, because no one likes the BRAC, but Congress has to approve it. there's good and bad about BRAC. The good thing about BRAC is it's out in the open. You know what's going on, and you have time to react if something comes along that's not looking real favorable. Without a BRAC, decisions get made behind closed doors, and by the time you find out about them, it's probably too late to do anything about them.
So there is a positive.
Yeah. The BRAC process, it is transparent for the most part.
Well, that's good.
But the shadow BRAC, as it's referred to, or the things that go on behind closed doors that you don't know about, that really frightens me more than a BRAC.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the only thing we can do is play on our strengths, do what we can to mitigate the weaknesses we have, and make sure that we maintain our relationship with the base.
And we have an excellent relationship with the base.
We
Wayne
do,
County
and
does.
both the county and the city have done a wonderful job
Yes.
in zoning to protect the base, and that's going to be more important as time goes on, because the next generation of airplanes that hopefully will be at Seymour when the F-15 is finally retired, they're probably going to be a little noisier than what we got right now.
Yeah.
So we may need to maintain those noise contours, and I think the county and city both have done a great job at that.
So are we looking at the 22 or the 35 or something beyond the F-22 or 35?
Well, I think it would be the 35.
Really?
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
That's an amazing airplane.
It is an amazing airplane, but the reality is it's not as amazing as the F-15E. It can't carry the payload. It don't have it don't have the long legs that the F-15 has. It's a one-engine airplane.
Single instead of two.
So you know, it's supposed to be the great next thing.
Oh
but
yeah. Yeah. Well, it does.
We'll see.
It does things.
It does things that the F-15 probably
Is this
can't
the
do.
plane that stops in midair?
The Marine version of it can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Marine version is a vertical lift, just like the Harrier.
Okay, the VTOL.
And then the Navy has their version because it's got to have a different suspension for landing on decks.
I see.
So it's I think the idea behind the F-35 is one airplane that you can configure to meet the Air Force's needs, the Marine needs, and the Navy needs.
Yeah.
It just has
all
to be a little
three.
bit reconfigured.
Now, is that a single person?
Single person,
Okay, no backseater.
no backseater.
Yeah, you know what? We need to keep this F-15E as long as we can.
Well, I think it's going to be around for a long time,
hope
and
so.
hopefully it will.
Now, that's an amazing plane.
It is an amazing plane.
It is indeed. We're very fortunate to have it here, and we're very proud of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and we need to do all we can to protect it. But now, what would endanger Seymour Johnson? I know encroachment.
Encroachment is a
That's
big deal. But you know what they're talking about for another round of BRAC, they're looking, one theory that we've heard is that mission may not be the #1 priority in the next round of BRAC. It could
Really?
be how efficient the base operates.
Oh,
That's
wow.
going to be a big deal. And I will say there is a pilot program out there called P4 that the Air Force has selected 15 bases, I think, to test that. And Seymour was one of the bases,
Oh, I'm
which
sure.
I think is a good thing,
Yeah.
because when you look at the other bases on that list of 15, there's some pretty impressive names there. But it's looking at how to partner the base with the community with the base, because you know the city, the county, and the Air Force, they all provide the same services: garbage collection, everything.
Right.
And is there a way that the city, county, and the base could do one contract with the provider and save everybody some money?
Oh,
Is there a way that we could look at other things, like partnering on the base is in bad need of a fitness center. Is there a way to do a public-private partnership on a fitness center that the public could have access to, and maybe the base has some land that could allow to be used for it to be built on, but not have the military have to pay full cost? And there's an example of that out at Nellis. Nellis they had water issues out there, and they needed some land, and Nellis had the land, and Nellis needed a fitness center, so Nellis gave the land to the city of Las Vegas, and the state built a fitness center for the base.
well, You know, Nellis is out in the middle of the desert. Of course they're going to have water problems. I mean, come on. And we've got a whole ocean out there, so I don't see the connection here.
But what they did was they both had a need.
Okay.
And so they just kind of scratched each other's back, and it worked out for both parties.
Right.
And these meetings have been going on now for several months, and there was another one scheduled for this Tuesday. It has been postponed until November. Yeah. But the city and the county and the base are meeting about every other month and coming up with a list of possibilities. And then some of those are things that make a lot of sense and they're easy to do, and you can do them very quickly. Yeah. And then there's others that are very complicated that will take a couple of years maybe to work through that because you have a lot of red tape. Wow. But it is a possibility.
Yeah. You know, we could go on for another hour or so, but we are out of time, Jim. And I don't know how to thank you for coming in and talking to us about this, and I want you to come back and we'll continue this conversation.
Sounds good.
It sounds good to me. Our guest has been Jimmie Edmundson, who's the chairman of the Executive Committee of the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce Military Affairs Committee. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Your source for what's happening in your community is Wayne Goldsboro Television.
Today we have a couple of guests in the studio with us, and a lot of people may recognize and remember Gerald Taylor,
yes, sir,
supervisor of the Goldsboro Tobacco Market, and auctioneer Hugh PATE. And I don't know for sure, guys, but I think you're retired now. Is that right?
Both of us are retired.
I'm very much retired.
Are you retired?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. First of all, thanks a lot for being with us.
Yes,
I appreciate you coming in and talking to us. Tell me about the Goldsboro Tobacco Market now. Back in the day, when was it at its prime, would you say?
I would say it was in its prime in the 40s, 50s, 60s, right on, because I started auctioneering on the Goldsboro Tobacco Market about 1958. And sold tobacco 35 years here. So it was in its prime pretty much then. And then we got two sets of buyers, and we run about 4 or 5 warehouses at one time. And that's when it was in its prime.
Gerald, how did that work? How many warehouses? We had 4 or 5 at that time.
When I came on, there were 7 tobacco warehouses, and I came on in the early 80s. And I worked with it for several years. And of course, I was responsible for scheduling the sales for the tobacco that's brought in by the producers. And the producers were brought in according to the amount of tobacco they had grown, and that they were allotted by the federal government. But the government had their part in on this tobacco business too.
Oh, yeah.
And so they would allot their tobacco to a warehouse. The warehouseman had to go out and work these producers so that they would have the producers to come bring their tobacco when it was ready to sell. And it was just a fascinating job, and since the old days of tying the tobacco with the tobacco leaf and so forth, they just scramble it up in a sheet now, and they sell it by the sheet. Yeah. And of course, one of the things that's important about going through the sale is the tobacco has to be graded by the government graders.
Right.
Again now. So as Mr. Hugh would say, that if it were a tobacco grade, say for instance a B4, they could have another letter too, like a B4K or something like that. It had an amount that the government would pay for that tobacco if it had to go to them. Then he would start off the sale with that government grade price, and if it didn't bring that, then the government would take it.
So what would you do? Give me an idea of how you would start the pricing.
See, the warehouseman would lead the sale, and he would start it, but but he knew pretty much what it was worth and what it should bring. And say if he would start it at $1.60, and it didn't bring $1.60, they would bid on it, and sometime he'd let me drop down. See, 60, 49, 48, 9, 50, you know, so on. But you'd come on down till you get somebody to bid on it. But then if it didn't bring what the government wanted for it, the ticket marker would holler out, you know, so much. And he would put it on the ticket, and then the government would get it. But in the later years, there was pretty good demand for tobacco, and they didn't get too much tobacco. Once in a while, if it was a poor grade of tobacco on the floor, they would get some, but a very small percentage. But the government support is what kept them in business. And when they killed that, they voted it out, and that's when the tobacco business changed altogether.
All right. Now, Gerald, when you were supervisor, you said there were 2 buyers in the market. Now, who do these buyers work for?
No, there was about 7 buyers. At
7
one
buyers. I
time.
beg your pardon.
One for
In
each
a line.
warehouse.
In a line, see, and I had to watch all those guys.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I had to watch them all. And then at the last few years, there was probably 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
But see, this is part of my job. I had to go from one route all the way down the line on each pile to see if he wanted to bid on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it got sort of
Interesting.
interesting,
Okay.
very interesting, especially if it was a good grade and all of them wanted it.
Right.
That's when it was my job to allot it out, and that's when I was their friend, because they wanted it, and they would say, hey, I'd sure like to have some of this
Yeah.
and some of that. But it made a difference. But I could tell, I could find my friends then, because
Yeah.
they wasn't too friendly sometimes.
Now, on opening day, Gerald, let me make sure I understand how this
Okay.
worked. I'm not really sure how it worked. I was just in radio. I didn't know anything. But on opening day, you'd start out at one particular warehouse.
Right.
And that, well, a certain amount of time was allotted to that warehouse.
That's right.
And then when that time was up, it was
You
up.
stopped. That's right.
Right.
And you went on to the next one.
Yes.
You didn't. There weren't sales simultaneously.
They were allotted so many piles to sell, and had so much time to sell it.
Okay.
If they didn't sell it, Gerald would stop it. So that's it.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
We go,
I
and
made
they
some
didn't like
friends.
that.
Did you make some friends too?
And but
bet you
that's
did.
the way it worked. And sell it in your allotted time.
Yeah.
And of course, at that time, we would average around 400 piles an hour selling it.
That's a lot of tobacco.
We have sold 500 or better, depending on how good it sold and what the demand was for it. But we'd always sell around 400 piles an hour. I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
And the buyers would have their grades that they were wishing to buy for the company that they were working for. And
Right.
by the way, we had 12 buyers, and that's a lot of people following a row of tobacco for you to have to break it down. Whenever you get into the good tobacco, he'd have to break it down. You get one, you get one, you get one, you get one, right on down. And it was interesting to watch that,
I bet it
because
was.
they were all wanting some tobacco.
That's when it creates a problem. But the man that's buying some of the old sorry tobacco, so to speak,
Yeah.
when we got into good tobacco, I favored him. I had
absolutely.
to, because he would buy the lower grade
The lower
stuff.
grade, yeah.
Then when we got on the good stuff, I couldn't afford to let him have the same that I let everybody else have, that he got, because he was kind of carrying the load. And that's when an auctioneer got in a little trouble. But that's all right. He was the boss. He was running the show.
Auctioneer ran the show.
He ran the show.
On that sale.
On that sale. Got the last word on that.
That's right. The warehouseman had the first word, but
Oh.
the auctioneer had the last word.
That's right.
Okay.
And they knew that, so they wanted to be my friend.
Here we go. Making more friends, right?
And you were asking about the how you designate their time.
Yeah.
Well, the market was scheduled to sell so much tobacco in a day,
Right.
so much time in a day,
Right.
and I would take the time and break it down and into minutes. And you won't believe this, but I break it down into the minutes, and then I'd take the tobacco that warehouse would have, or any other warehouse, and I'd divide it into that and come up with my minutes that warehouse could sell tobacco.
So you determine the amount of time each warehouse
Absolutely,
had.
absolutely. By the amount of tobacco that they had designated they were going to sell.
Did you come close?
All the time.
Did you
Close.
now?
I was on top of it, man.
What?
I was on top of that.
Well,
I had it.
They couldn't sell but so many piles.
That's
anyway.
right.
If they were ahead of time, when they sold, say if he was allotted 400 piles, when we got to 400 piles, we quit,
Yeah.
because that's as far as he
far as they
had
could
laid
go.
it out to sell that day.
And the warehouseman and the auctioneer knew where they were going to go to.
Okay.
Now we'd have some that would. There was an aggravating thing to me that was resale. That would be where a warehouseman would buy some, or some pin hooker. What I mean by pin hooker, that's some individual like Wayne Alley coming in buying tobacco. We had to have a market, to sell it. but you could come in, say, and buy some tobacco. You were considered a pin hooker. Well,
Really?
then that would be paid, be bought back as resale.
But
Look, I've been called a lot of things, you know, but never a pin hooker.
see, if somebody turned tags, we'd say turn tags.
Right.
Wouldn't take the price, say on 10 piles. They would have we could sell 10 more piles at the end of the sale.
Right.
You know.
Right.
We'd take it because we had so many piles we could sell in so much time. So there's several things that goes along with this warehouse business. You know.
Sure is.
All right, and then our tobacco ended up where? When it was sold here?
It was put on trucks, and earlier days it was put on boxcars.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
By train. Train tracks went up to the warehouse, but
Right,
later
the
days
warehouse, yeah, they did.
it was trucked away from here. Now, for instance, American Tobacco Company and Reynolds, they had a prize room here. We call it a prize room. They pick it up on little trucks and take it to the prize room and put it in the hogsets and haul that away. But J.P. Taylor and some of these people would haul it to Wilson or different places, and they had big trucks pick it up at the warehouse. Now that was a sight to see.
Yeah.
All these people working in the warehouse, moving around, getting that tobacco loaded, pulling it to the doors and getting it on the trucks. Because you had to move it that day because you're going to put it down that afternoon to sell the next day.
Okay.
And when they would have a backlog of the tobacco along beside the side of the tobacco warehouse, it would pile up in there. And you know, we only sold 4 days a week. That was Monday through Thursday.
Right.
And Friday was the day for no sale. And the warehouseman would have the people that bought the tobacco, or they would come in and they'd take all their tobacco out. Monday morning we'd have a clean house, and we could start all over again.
Well, I know that opening day was a day of excitement. Did did the excitement ever dwindle? Did it ever diminish until the end of the season?
Oh yeah, it
calmed down after a while.
Opening day was a big day. Some of the boys would have a lemonade and have a brass string band up on the trailer truck and all that. Sort of a big thing. Everybody would come to town. But in later years, it changed. People didn't go like that. Farmers were tending more tobacco, and there were bigger farmers, and they didn't come to town. In olden days, I remember when the tobacco market opened, that was the day.
Oh yeah.
People come to the market to see it. And opening day was still pretty good. They wanted to see what it was going to bring and what their crop looked like it was going to bring. And the curiosity, you know.
Yeah.
And so opening day was always a good big day.
So average farmer would bring in maybe how many pounds? Or?
Depending on his allotment and how much he had designated to that warehouse. Big farmer could bring more each day, or once a week or something when it was real tight.
And they had to say, I want to designate, I want to use that, I want to show my tobacco, sell my tobacco in that warehouse.
Oh yeah, he would designate a warehouse, and that's where he would sell it. And ever so often he could change warehouses if he wanted to.
I hear a little competition between warehouses.
Oh yeah,
there was.
And he was
were
talking
making friends too, weren't
talking about the men that worked at the warehouse. They had trade men.
Yeah.
They would hire men, farmers, you know, that knew a lot of farmers, and he would go out with the tobacco warehouseman, and they would call it drumming tobacco. And they'd go talk to the farmers and say, "We're going to get more for your crop. You bring it to sell it with us."
They were selling. Sure.
They
They were
sell it
selling
with
the
us.
warehouse.
Selling the warehouse.
That's good.
You know, it's sort of a prize game, you know.
Well, sure. They were marketing their
They were
their
marketing
company.
what they were doing. That's
Marketing their
right.
warehouse. Good. All right. So how has it changed from earlier years, say in the 40s, until just before the Goldsboro market closed? And it's been a while back since the Goldsboro market closed, hasn't it?
Oh yes.
Yes.
When it first started, they put it on these baskets, and they took real good care of
Good
it,
care of
piled it, you know, real neat and all. In later years, they started just putting it in sheets and throw it out there. They didn't grade it in. Used to, they'd have 5 or 6 grades, you know, of tobacco. And in later years, they put it all in one sheet and sell it.
Yeah.
And it would bring just so much, and there was a
would it?
good demand for it. Yeah, there was a good demand for tobacco. It's still a good demand for tobacco. They have an auction in Wilson 1 day a week now.
Still?
Still.
Is that right?
It's in Bales, and I've been over there.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine, they have an auction here, and 4 buyers. for company buyers. And
Is that right?
tobacco is selling good over there. I've been over there to see them.
Well, when the Goldsboro market closed, how was tobacco handled after that? Was it sold directly to the tobacco companies?
Yeah,
Correctly.
they contracted with the tobacco companies.
And there's an advantage to that and a disadvantage. The auction, you'd have competition between the buyers.
Right.
Some competition. But now with the contracts, if you have a contract with a company, we'll use some RJ Reynolds as an example. And if they didn't like the quality of the tobacco that the producer grew, they may come to him and say, look, we can't pay you the price that we offered you. You'd have to come down low.
And it was a bad situation, I think,
Yeah.
because you were at the mercy of the tobacco company. I think they did injustice when they took them.
I think you're right.
Took the auction system away from us, but we voted it out. I mean, the farmer voted it out.
Really?
They didn't want it. Yeah.
Really?
And then it just killed the whole thing. Then it went on this contract buying. That's what the companies wanted all the time.
Was the idea that the farmers thought they were going to get more money from the companies? Was that the idea, or were they just tired of fooling with the auction?
And they didn't have an allotment. They could grow all they wanted.
Oh, okay.
That was the main point.
Then a big tobacco acreage, a huge tobacco acreage would be 7,500 acres. But now they'll grow 1,000 acres.
They have the land to plant it?
400 or 500 acres, a lot of people. I know several farmers that plant 400 or 500 acres tobacco
My
now.
goodness.
Let me tell you something, there's some work in tobacco, regardless of how many, if it's
yeah.
1 acre or 1,000 acres.
1,000 acres, a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, yeah. I grew up on a farm, born and raised on one, and I put in tobacco many a day, and I know how, it was hard work.
It is hard work.
But I think on our farm, we had about 12, 14 acres of tobacco. It was pretty good acreage, you know.
But if you're born and raised on a farm, you don't know it's not hard work.
No.
You know it's hard work,
but
you don't know any different.
We didn't mind it.
No,
we had a
that's
good
what you
time
do.
anyway.
That's getting close to payday then, man.
Yeah, man. Fellas, I'd love to continue this, but we're out of time.
Okay.
We could sit here and talk for hours.
I've enjoyed it.
I
We're going to have to do it again. How about that? Can you come back sometime?
Well, maybe.
Well, good. I hope so.
Maybe after we go see how market's running
I may retire from everything, Wayne, but I enjoyed it very much.
Pate, thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Gerald Taylor. Appreciate you guys doing coming in here and talking to us. Hugh, why don't you give us a little bit of auctioneering there?
Hey, I'm $40 and $2, minute of $3, minute of $4, minute of $5, minute of $6, and me, minute of $9, minute of American.
Thanks for watching. This is Wayne Goldsboro Television, in the heart of Goldsboro, in the heart of Wayne County.
And we're back. How about that?
How about that?
How about that? Yeah, great. I love those guys. And thanks to everyone who was here. Earlier in the week, I had mentioned inventions there were the ideas of women who made some of the most famous inventions.
And once again, we said we appreciate that very much.
Well, just trying to, give credit where credit's due. Would you believe windshield wipers on your automobile was the idea of a woman?
Yes, I would, actually.
Whatever happened to, oh, really?
Oh, really?
Thank you. Drivers were, in fact, skeptical when Mary Anderson invented the first manual windshield wipers back in 1903, over 110 years ago. They were thought it was safer to drive with rain and snow obscuring the road rather than to pull a lever to clear the windshield.
Okay.
But another woman inventor by the name of Charlotte Bridgewood invented an automatic version with an electric roller in 1917, probably like that. I think it was
Probably,
like that.
I believe so too.
Yeah. It didn't take off either, but by the time Anderson's patent expired in 1920, windshield wipers were cleaning up. The first vehicle to include windshield wipers as a regular
Let me guess, was it a Ford product?
No.
Oh.
No.
Wrong guess.
Well, that could have been, but it was not.
Okay.
It was, in fact, it was the Cadillac.
Oh, wow.
Was the first to include windshield wipers on every car. Now,
Okay.
Ford may have had it, and that's a good guess because, of course, Henry Ford was an innovator.
Right.
Ford being an innovator, he could have easily done that, but Cadillac was the first to include on every car model. Other companies soon followed, putting windshield wipers invented by a woman on every car model.
Excellent.
There you
Good
go.
job.
Yes.
I certainly
really?
enjoy mine. Do you enjoy yours?
I enjoy my windshield wipers. I do.
As do I.
Okay.
Tomorrow,
What's up?
the Young Professionals of Wayne County, which of course is a part of the Chamber of Commerce, is holding their annual Monster Bash.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? Monster Bash. If you're interested in participating, you just find your very best Halloween costume. You call the Chamber of Commerce for more information or visit their Facebook page or their website.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? If you'd like to attend the Monster Bash of the Young Professionals, they will be having a band, a DJ, lots of social entertainment. Call the Chamber of Commerce to find out more about it.
I once had a rubber band.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? There you go. And it's Thursday all day long.
Today?
Yes.
Wow, how did that happen? So that means we will not be here tomorrow.
No, we will not.
No, we've got Donald and Krista coming in tomorrow. Donald and Krista will be your guest host for tomorrow, and they'll have a special show lined up for you.
That's exactly
and then
right.
We'll be back in here Monday.
Yes, we will. So don't forget all the fine activities happening around the community this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. So until Monday, which is when we'll be back again.
Yes.
Until then, I'm Wayne Alley.
And I'm Kim Best, and this is what's happening in your community.